Welcome. Today we're going to talk about getting broader and deeper organizational visibility to drive success within your business financials. I'm Bob Shago. I work with Sage Intacct Product Marketing. I've been working with Sage Intacct for over a decade, and among all the companies I've talked to, the number one benefit I hear from companies who have moved to Sage Intacct is the visibility they now have into their businesses. Let's face it, with growth comes challenges Quickbooks just isn't built to handle. One of those is visibility. Visibility across business entities, visibility into key business metrics, and visibility into financials across dimensions like locations, departments, products, and projects. We'll look at ways to see and analyze business data to inform better strategic decisions. I hope you'll also begin to see why Sage Intacct is the only preferred provider of the AICPA. Before we get started, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping items. Please type questions into the chat box or in the Q&A box to submit them. We'll try to get to all of your questions during the course of the webinar. If we don't get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up afterwards. We're also sending out a link to this recording of this webinar in a follow-up email after the event. At the end of the webinar, please take a few minutes to fill out the survey. Today we're going to look at why Sage Intacct has made big differences in the financial health of growing companies, especially companies who have been struggling to scale while using QuickBooks. We're going to do this by diving into the product and looking at a few of the ways Sage Intacct brings visibility to the finance team. We aren't going to dive into every area of the product today, but rather stick to those areas of general interest to most companies. If you're dealing with specialty areas like subscription billing, project accounting, or inventory management, those areas are part of other specialized webinars. The things we're going to look at are general visibility. We'll dive into Sage Intacct's built-in tools to provide visibility by focusing on key metrics, visibility across locations, or what we call entities, and visibility by filtering on dimensions. Before we dive into the system demo, I'd like to set the stage a little with why we're looking at these particular areas. As a growing company, you face challenges in finance. When relying on QuickBooks, many of these challenges actually become a bottleneck to a growing company. For example, are you seeing growing numbers of transactions in revenue and expenses? And are those transactions occurring at more locations where information is slow to make it back to the main office? Are you finding the close and subsequent visibility taking longer and longer? Now, we should be celebrating growth. Often, the finance team, however, is stuck with cleaning up a lot of messes created by growth. The reporting spreadsheets that worked so well when you were a small business, they become cumbersome and error-prone. Closing the books and using spreadsheets to get out end-of-the-period reports can take so many days or weeks that the reports are just out of date as soon as they're complete. All of this leads to questionable decisions being made on old, questionable information. The simple task of responding to customers about sales orders becomes a monumental task of sifting through data. This can lead to a drop in customer satisfaction, adversely affecting growth. And as each location becomes its own report center, you lack the controls necessary to capitalize on the scale across your company by seeing the whole company as one growing entity. Continued growth in a competitive environment requires a more nimble approach to finance. The way we do this is with a modern cloud financial management system. We get instant insight through key metrics on dynamic dashboards. I'm going to show you how we see consolidated information from across multiple business entities. And we're going to look at reporting on and analyzing data by filtering it on built-in dimensions, as well as user-defined dimensions. Instant insight through key metrics on dynamic dashboards means that you no longer need to export and analyze in Excel or attack reports with a calculator to get to the numbers you're looking for. I'm going to move over into our demo company. So this is our demo company for today. The company we're looking at is a products company, but the things I'm going to show you apply to any type of company. I've started out on a dashboard. Each user has the ability to define their own start page, and you can create role-based dashboards for different kinds of users. This dashboard happens to be the CFO Daily View. Now I want to point out that this dashboard doesn't come built in, but you actually define it and build it in the system. I can easily switch to look at another dashboard designed around another function or just maybe another view required by the CFO, like CFO Sales View. The first thing most people notice on a simple dashboard is the set of performance cards. Each card is a summation or a calculation from one or more account groups. An account group is simply a set of accounts from the chart of accounts. For example, the asset performance card. This is a summation of all asset accounts. You can define your own account groups and then apply them to performance cards. In other words, you define the key metrics that matter most to your business and define them here. Now, everything is done through menus or configuration, so you don't need IT to help create or update performance cards. We can even drill down to the performance card to see the details. We see that amounts for the individual accounts in the current and previous period. On the CFO Sales View, you'll notice we have revenue per shipment. In this case, the company keeps track of shipments in a statistical account. Now, statistical accounts keep track of non-financial information, like number of employees, visible hours, billable hours, or in this case, shipment count. Got my mind on visibility. By creating an account group that calculates revenue divided by shipments in a particular period, we can get to this metric and even compare it to a previous period. Now, performance cards aren't the only thing you can show on a dashboard. You can display, as we have on this dashboard, charts giving a quick visualization of underlying data. The charts are The charts are created in the Report Center, which I'll show you in a moment, but you can change their appearance right on the dashboard. For example, you may prefer to see a donut chart as a bar chart. You can simply open the properties for that element and update it right inside the dashboard. You can also display row and column reports on a dashboard. Like charts, reports are created in the Report Center and then displayed on the dashboard. No IT support's required. You can expand a report to see more columns or rows. You can also drill down on values in the report to see more details. In fact, you can keep drilling down right to the transactions that make up the report. Sage Intacct comes with a library of over 100 pre-built reports. You can create variations of these reports by duplicating and modifying them, or create all new reports in one of Sage Intacct's report writers. Sage Intacct has a financial report writer that builds financial reports based on the general ledger, incorporating reporting periods, account groups, and dimensions, a concept I'll get into in a few minutes. It also has a custom report writer that allows you to create reports as needed, performing lookups to related information across tables, such as returning customer contact information based on invoices with a past due balance in a given date range. Sounds complex, but it's actually fairly easy to build, and you can build it without the help of IT. Additional built-in reports exist in different modules, like vendor aging in the accounts payable module. So I have a question here, a pretty common question. Are dashboards an add-on, and how many dashboards do you get? So dashboards are included as part of the core product. They aren't an add-on. We do have certain pre-built, really complex dashboards we call board books that are specific to an industry like software. And those board books can be purchased as add-ons. But regular dashboards, like I'm showing you here, are built into the product. You define them. And there's no limit to the number of dashboards you can create. In fact, we found that the customers who build dashboards across all their roles in their business and make the most of dashboards for running their business are also the happiest customers and the most likely to recommend us to others. So we love it when you make lots of dashboards and really use them as a tool in your business. Great question. Thank you. So let's move on to the second part of this demonstration by talking about how you can see consolidated information from across multiple business entities. If you've been handling multiple entities in QuickBooks, then you know how fun it is to log into separate QuickBooks files, export information, compile that information to spreadsheets. You get the idea. There's a better way, and I'll show you. So moving back over here to our demo company, back on this dashboard I started with, you'll notice that the screen is labeled top level. That means we're looking at the top level of a multi-entity structure. In the dropdown, we see that we have 4 entities in this organization. Each one of these entities can function as an individual legal business entity. From this top level, I can dive into any one of these entities by clicking on it. The system opens a new tab, and I'm able to see information and do accounting tasks as if I were logged into just that one entity. I can see the same dashboard as I saw at the top level, but this time it has information with just the entity I'm in. Now back at the top level, we've been looking at consolidated information. You have a couple of choices when you set up a multi-entity organization. You can choose to make all the entities conform to a single chart of accounts. This works really well for things like franchises or businesses where really similar business is being done. And then you maintain that chart of accounts from the top level. When you do this, you get continuous consolidations. By that I mean when a transaction is entered in one of the entities, the results are automatically reflected at the top level. You can see up-to-the-minute results from across the organization. Another option is to have different charts of accounts. Perhaps you're constrained by laws in a certain area or by the types of businesses you're running. In this case, you would need to run a consolidation to see across the organization. This type of consolidation takes maybe a couple seconds or a couple minutes depending on the organization. One company I worked with runs a consolidation across their global entities every hour during their end of period close. The real takeaway is that you never have to export and consolidate files in a spreadsheet to get to your numbers. And you never have to cross your fingers and pray that your formulas keep working. You also don't need to spend hours during close doing journal entries for inter-entity eliminations. The system automatically handles those for you based on rules you set up. So the numbers you see are all accurate and up to date with all the transactions that have taken place, all handled, ready for that close. You also have the ability to control who sees across entities. So you can configure which entities a user sees. If you limit a person to doing accounting in just one entity, they'll only see the financials and metrics for that entity. It's like they're just logging into that one company. Similarly, you can limit a manager's dashboard to see just the entity he or she is responsible for. You can also divide out metrics to compare entities. In this dashboard, you probably already noticed are breakouts for financial information by entity. This allows us to see at a glance how different business units are performing. If you have a lot of entities, you can also group them to see aggregate metrics on a set of business units. Meaning I could just group maybe Texas and California here, and then group Maine and Florida if I wanted to look at, maybe East and West. I have another question. What if an entity in another what if I have an entity in another country doing business in another currency like Canadian dollars? If you're doing business in another currency, whether that's the base currency for the entity or you just need to transact in another currency, Sage Intacct handles the currency conversion for you. In the case of another entity working in a foreign currency, during consolidations, everything is rolled up to the base currency of your top level or your consolidation entity. If you're just doing transactions in foreign currency, you choose the currency at the time you enter the transaction, and the system keeps track of the transaction in both the foreign currency and the base currency of the entity. So we have what we call the Sage Intacct daily rate that tracks exchange rates for currencies from all over the world and applies them at the time of the transaction. You also have the ability to set a specific exchange rate on a transaction. For example, you might have contracted with a supplier on a big order at a particular exchange rate, and you want to use that for the individual transaction. So you can just set that when you enter the transaction. We're all about flexibility to meet your business needs. With that, let's tie in one more aspect of visibility. Being able to get information is just part of the story. You also need to be able to analyze it to get at what's driving your business. In a traditional system, you might keep expanding your chart of accounts to get more refined financial data, like segmenting accounts to create a set of expense or revenue accounts for each department. This just continues to multiply the number of accounts in your chart of accounts, making it ever bigger and bigger and more unwieldy to use. In Sage Intacct, we keep the chart of accounts simple by using dimensions to allow you to slice and dice information for analysis. So I'm back on this same dashboard. You might have noticed these drop-down filters along the top here. These are just 3 of the dimensions available in the company. By selecting a dimension like location, we can filter the entire dashboard by that dimension. Entities are included in locations, and we also see that these locations aren't entities, but actual locations that fall under the other business units. The chart showing revenue by item is an example of breaking out results by a dimension. Item is a dimension. To get a quick look at dimensions, I'll go to the General Ledger configuration, where you would select which dimensions to track. Now on this list of dimensions, the first 9 are standard dimensions included with Sage Intacct. Product line is a dimension called class that's been renamed to product line. You might be familiar with class in QuickBooks. It's, I guess, the only dimension in QuickBooks. But we have a class and we can rename it to whatever we want. In this case, it's being used as product line. This last dimension listed here, municipality, that's a user-defined dimension. You can define additional dimensions to suit your particular business needs. Nonprofit companies often create user-defined dimensions to track financials by grant or funds. One great example we use is, let's say you were running a boat tour company on San Francisco Bay, and you had several boats. You could set up a dimension for your boats, and then you would be able to track all the revenue and expenses per boat and break out your reporting per boat and see, profit and loss statements for that dimension for each of your boats. As transactions get entered as bills, invoices, or journal entries, you tag them with different dimensions. So as we go into a bill here, down to line items, this is the expanded line item of a bill. Later, you can run reports that break out financial information along that selected dimension. For example, I can look at income statement detail by customer to see a breakout of sales by customer. I'll select all active customers. Now, even though I don't have a lot of transaction data in this sample company, you get an idea of how you can start analyzing where revenue is being generated in your company. You can even create groups of dimensions and use them in reports. For instance, you could create a group of that dynamically selects your top 10 customers by revenue and run a report just on that group. Dimensions can also be stacked, allowing you to create a report like sales by entity by product line. When you add a report or chart to a dashboard, you can filter it on a particular dimension to show the exact information you need to make key decisions. This wraps up the dimension portion of the demonstration, but I do have a question. The question is, how many dimensions do I get with Intacct? Well, I showed you 9 built-in dimensions. There's actually 10 built-in dimensions in Sage Intacct. Some of them come with modules. So if you're running projects, you get the projects dimension. If you're running what we call the contracts or subscription billing module, you get a contracts dimension. And warehouse comes with inventory management. Those are included in the 10 dimensions that are built in. But with user-defined dimensions, you can continue to add dimensions as needed in your business. Dimensions are an add-on. They come in packs of 3, and you can just continue to add them as you need them. I'm going to wrap up with a few additional concepts to keep in mind as you consider whether your company is ready to move beyond QuickBooks. As we've polled our customers, 80% have said they wish they would have switched sooner. They told us that waiting until finance becomes a bottleneck delayed the ROI they saw when they finally made the switch. As you decide the direction of your growing company, you're going to find that certain partners are a best fit for other aspects of your organization, like CRM, payroll, and planning. As a best-in-class solution, Sage Intacct integrates with dozens of these solutions. You have the flexibility to choose integrated solutions that make the most sense for your business. You can also swap out these systems as you grow and change. We really do want to be your partner for the life of your business. So why choose Sage Intacct? We're the right partner to help in your success. Our system is the only one preferred by the AICPA, the organization that wrote the book on accounting. Every US-based company follows their standards, and they have over 431,000 members who've seen and used every accounting system out there. And of all the systems, ours is the only one they prefer. No other software company can say that. We're rated number 1 in customer satisfaction by G2 Crowd. That was this year, and we've actually been number 1 in customer satisfaction since 2015, based on over 2,000 reviews. Compared to our cloud peers, we've received highest scores on satisfaction, the way our product meets current business requirements, product direction, the way we're focused on finance features for finance people every quarter when we do a new release, and our Net Promoter Score. More users are likely to recommend our product to others. We also received the highest scores on Gartner's Critical Capabilities Report for organizations with annual revenues of $50 million to $500 million, headquartered in a single country and doing major operations in a single country. What can I say? We focus on finance, and we've gotten really good at it. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you saw some things that align with where your finance team is going. We'd love to hear from you, even do a demo of how Sage Intacct can meet your specific needs. Now, I'm near the end of my time, but I'll be sure to respond to any additional questions that have been posted. If you're interested in learning more, we offer a number of resources on our website, everything from free trial for you to get a hands-on experience in Sage Intacct to a variety of upcoming webinars. You can follow us on Twitter or connect with us on Facebook or call us directly. We'd love to talk to you. I hope you found this time educational. I want to remind you as you exit today's webinar, please take a moment to fill out the survey. It's going to really help us deliver the content that's most valuable to you. Thank you for attending today's webinar, and I hope to see you in future webinars.